Welcome to Chris Parkin Shooting Sports. Apologies for being away for a couple of weeks. I've been full of cold and my voice is perhaps not still quite there yet, so apologies if you can't hear me perfectly well. Today we've got something a little bit different. I saw this at the British Shooting Show back in February 2022 and I saw a company called Guncraft, as can be seen here, who have AR-15 type rifles, and this one is one I've never used before. I know they existed, but I've not really bumped into one because this is in 22 WMR. Now, not everybody will necessarily be familiar with what a 22 WMR is, so we'll go into that in a minute. But first of all, we're going to unpackage this. So we have an AR-15 type mag, but there's a very small set of feed lips and the mag follower there, so that gives a clue to start with on the size of the round. Let's just see if we can dismember all this box, get the rifle itself out and show you what it is. Pop all this out of the way. And this is it. So that is a fairly familiar looking AR-15 build. I am not personally super aficionado on AR-15 type rifles, but I do know the basics of them. So if we look at this design, okay, we've got a flash hider at the front, we've got a multi sort of directional, this looks like an octagonal forend, we've got loads of Picatinny rail, underslung AR-15 type grip. I'm just going to check that again. So first thing we've got is that that's got last round hold open, because if I drop that magazine out, that will work without it. Put the magazine back in and it does last round hold open. So I'm just going to pop that out again, let that forward. Let's try this trigger. That's quite nice. It's not super crisp like a bolt action rifle trigger, but it works. Now, residual from the AR-15 type thing, we've got a forward assist there, which of course we're not going to be using, and there's a case deflector there. There's also a nice spring open breech cover, so that stops dust and debris and things going in. That there is the mag release as you saw. We'll just pop that one. Now we'll leave that out for the moment, and on the other side we've got the manual bolt release, and we've also got the safety catch, so that is safe there and up for fire. Familiar buffer tube, we've got an extending stock here, sling swivels on the base there, a solid plastic back plate on that, grips into your shoulder, and there we go. Very simple thing. I suspect most of you will have seen AR-15 type rifles before, and most are variations on a theme. Commonality of parts is one of the joyful things about them. And the big difference here, we can see this uppers made by Guncraft UK, serial number on there. But the big difference with this is the 22 WMR. So let's have a little look at one of those, because not everybody will have actually seen one. I had a dig through the armoury and I pulled out a few different types of ammo. I was a little bit worried at first because the only one I could find was subsonic 22 WMR. But we'll leave that for a moment. That's a Winchester one. I also found, thankfully, some standard velocity 22 WMR. And this is from Remington. Now, for those of you who don't know and want the simple explanation, a 22 WMR is like a 22 rimfire that we're very familiar with, except it's longer. It is the same length as the common new 17 HMR, which most people will have perhaps seen. So if we look at the cases here, that's a standard 22 rimfire, and that's a subsonic one as it happens, but it doesn't really matter. 17 HMR, 17 grain bullet, and of course that's the long case, and then we've got a standard velocity and a subsonic 22 WMR. Now let's just put the subsonic 22 WMR to one side for a second, because to be honest, there's not really a lot of point having all that big case to project the same 40 grain bullet at a slower speed. 22 we'll just put to one side as well, because that's nothing of any great new interest to us. Now if we look at these, you can see the same length case. It's the Winchester Magnum rimfire. Happens that those are Winchester, these are Remington, and the suggested velocity on this box from the Winchester ammunition is, it's a 33 grain AccuTip bullet, Accutip V boat tail bullet, and that's doing 2,000 feet per second. So compare that to a 40 grain 2.2 rimfire bullet, which is probably doing about 1,000 feet per second, maybe 1,1300 max on the high velocity ones. You can see why we've got a big difference for the 2.2 WMR. So essentially what we're going to get is we're going to get a rifle that gives us semi-automatic capability, just like we used to with AR-15 type rifles like the Smith & Wesson, things like that in 2.2 rimfire, but now we've got it in the more powerful, longer distance capable 2.2 Magnum rimfire. So if I take a few of these out, let's see how many will fit in this magazine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You should see if there's a number on the side. It actually says on it, it's a 14 round magazine, AR-15, 22 Magnum, 14 round. So we're going to be doing some shooting with this. It doesn't have any iron sights on it, but that doesn't matter to me. I'm going to put a 1:4 or a 1:6 optic on it, which is my preferred usage on a rifle like this. And I'm going to do a full review on it. I think it'll be quite interesting looking at the difference between the jacketed ballistic tip 2.2 WMR ammunition like this versus the lead subsonic ammunition. One thing I will say when operating this rifle and just having a look at it now in the armoury is when I let the bolt go forward, you do get quite a lot of vibration from the return spring inside the buffer tube. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out on a full video when we're actually using the rifle. I am presuming I can strip this down in the normal AR-15 fashion, whereby one of the back pins, or the back pin, will pop out. This will allow the gun to open, but we shall just have to play about and see if that's the case. So fairly familiar AR-15 concept. I possibly won't take this all apart on camera, you never know, but drop that there. And here you can see the bolt system. It's quite a heavy bolt actually, it's a lot heavier than a 22 one I think it seems. And that's a blowback operation system, so you've got an extractor claw on the right there, there'll be an ejector inside the action. So if I just pop this back together now, of course on the full auto ones you'd have the gas system which will be playing back on the bolt itself, but of course we don't have those here, so we're not going to worry about that. So putting this back together now, of course if this is your rifle you probably become far more familiar with the eccentricities of it immediately, but that drops in forward there, and we'll probably slide that in underneath back here, and that will all go forwards. The rifle clicks close. You can actually see here there's the hammer system, which is what actually fires the rifle, of course. Click that back down there, lock that closed, push the pin back through, and off we go. Magazine in, rack the bolt, and it's ready to fire. But we're not going to put the magazine in because that magazine's loaded. It's important to note that this Guncraft 2.2 WMR is all metal construction, other than the back end of the stock here in the magazine system. Some of the standard 2.2 rimfire AR-15 type rifles are actually polymer builds, but this is all metal. You can certainly feel it in the weight of the rifle itself. The full review will probably be published in a few magazines. Hopefully, if I get the time, the review will also be featured here on this channel, or perhaps for another few channels as well. But please stick with us, like, subscribe, comment, and don't forget to click the notification bell so you can see my regular uploads. The channel ebbs and flows a little bit, depends on the amount of time I've got, but I will guarantee you this: if I'm not writing about shooting or filming shooting or actually being out shooting, I am organising more shooting events or organising more rifles, scopes, night vision, thermal imaging items to review for you. So please join in, contribute to the channel, because it's all there for you and it costs nothing. So please, thank you for watching. Bye for now.